The alert popped up on my son's tablet like it was any other game notification. Standby confirmed. CLT to ORD. At the same second, my wife texted, lights out in ATL. I move baggage for a living. I know where people and our luggage actually go. In that moment, my stomach knew before my head did my marriage had taken a route change without telling me. My name is Eli, 35, supervisor on the ramp at Charlotte Douglas. If you've ever watched your carry-on disappear down a belt and worried it might end up in Seattle instead of Sarasota, I'm one of the guys making sure it doesn't. The ramp smells like hot rubber and jet fuel even in winter. We wear orange vests and sunburns for half the year and drink coffee that tastes like it was brewed in a brake drum. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. And it teaches you patterns. Bags go where people go. Paper trails are never really paper anymore. That night, my son, Miles, was sprawled sideways in his twin bed, one sock on, his iPad chugging through a cloud backup. He's 7 and thinks iCloud means the sky is saving his drawings. I was setting the device on airplane mode when the standby confirmed, banner rolled through. CLT to ORD, Charlotte to Chicago. Tasha, my wife, had kissed me 3 hours earlier in our kitchen with a to-go mug and a don't wait up, it's a short layover in Atlanta. I rechecked the banner like a man double reading a bill in bad light. Then I looked at the text thread that said ATL, then back at ORD. There's this second where your brain tries to help you. Maybe she swapped flights, maybe the airline shuffled crews, maybe a mistake, maybe. My brain did its best. My chest, though, went cold and tight, like the way you feel when a belt loader squeals and you know there's a jam before anyone calls it out. I set the iPad down and sat on the hallway floor outside Miles's room. The AC kicked on. The thin blue light of the tablet screen dimmed to black. In the quiet, I could hear the ice maker drop cubes into the freezer like small bones. I didn't cry, I didn't rage, I just heard my own voice say, okay. And that felt like someone else in the house had said it. Tasha is 32, a flight attendant with a smile that gets people to close overhead bins without arguing. She knows half the airports in the Southeast by smell. We met when I was loading a flight where she was working the aisle, and she joked I stacked bags like a Roomba. We married 2 years later under a live oak in Freedom Park. Our vows were simple. We're both shift people holidays that aren't on calendar days, meals that happen in cars, birthdays moved to the following Tuesday. You have to trust each other across time zones and overtime. That's the deal. I couldn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad I use for grocery lists and wrote ATL, then circled it. Then I wrote ORD and circled that too. It felt stupid right away, paper trying to catch a thing that lived in the cloud. I opened my laptop and logged into our family accounts. We share calendars because of pickups and daycare and the constant chess game of who's on duty. The airline's spouse portal, what they call non-rev, meaning you fly on standby as a benefit if there's a seat, was where I looked next. Non-rev stands for non-revenue passenger. I've used it to take Miles to see his grandma in Daytona more times than I can count. That page shows every confirmed standby, every badge swiped for a lounge, every little perk tied to her work ID. There it was, CLT to ORD standby confirmed, 11,050 p.m. There was also a line that made my jaw clench, hotel voucher, ORD 1005 a.m. Not ATL. Atlanta wasn't hiding in any of the codes, it was just a text on my phone, and I was the one who believed it. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling fan spin. On the counter, Tasha's Apple Watch lay on its charger, face dark. I tapped it. It woke up with her rings and her steps and her heart rate. I never went through her things. I never needed to. But now a voice I didn't like said, look. On the health app, there's this little red line for heart rate. At 2003:07 a.m., the line leaped like a fish out of water. Awake, high. Not sick high, not panic high. A different kind of high. A spike in the middle of what was supposed to be sleep after a shift. Nausea slid into me cold and clean. I gripped the edge of the counter until my fingers hurt, like if I didn't hold on, the room would tilt. The next day, I went to work early. It was still dark enough that the ramp lights made cones in the fog. CLT never sleeps, it just changes tempo. Duke was already in the break room unwrapping a breakfast burrito like it was evidence he had to preserve. Morning, he said around a mouthful. Duke's 40, been on the ramp long enough to have a knee that predicts rain better than any app. He's the kind of guy who remembers your kid's birthday and your dog's name but never asks more than you're ready to say. Yeah, I said. He looked up. You good? I poured coffee and waited to see if the burn might cauterize the thing inside me. It didn't. You ever get that feeling, I said, where a bag is tagged wrong and you know it before it hits the belt? Every day, he said, then squinted. You talking bags or? I showed him the non-rev page on my phone. I showed him the hotel voucher. He whistled low. Could be a reroute, he said, easy. Could be an irregular ops night, weather. I checked, I said. ATL had delays, but her route didn't show that. And the voucher, Chicago. He nodded at the coffee. You tell her you know? Not yet, I said. I don't want to go in with smoke and mirrors. I want the truth, the kind you can hold. Duke nodded again, and there was something like sorry in it. Get through the morning, he said, one belt at a time. I worked, or I moved like I was working. I called out weights, flagged the misload, kept my hands busy so my head wouldn't eat itself. It's amazing how many times you can scan a barcode and think about your wife at the same time. My phone buzzed once around 10 a text from Tasha with a picture of a hotel breakfast. The plate was white and perfect. The caption said, ATL breakfast is underrated. She didn't know our son's iPad had told on her. She didn't know her watch had sung at 2037 a.m. She didn't know I was in the quiet center of something about to snap. When a ramp is humming, the sound is like a single long breath. When it's off, everyone hears it. By noon, I was starting to get that hollow sound in my chest where breath should be. I went back to the spouse portal, clicked deeper. There's a section where partner perks link out to loyalty partners. One of them was a big hotel chain. I clicked through, half expecting a login wall. But because the benefits are tied to her employee ID, we get a summary page that shows earned nights. It also shows linked reservations, which is a fun perk when you're traveling with someone and want your nights counted together. There, under linked guest, was G Har. Next to it, 3 linked stays. And in the notes for the Chicago property, crew member captain arriving 1005 a.m. The chair scraped behind me hard enough to make me jump like someone hit the seat with a tug. No one was there. I realized I'd pushed back, stood up, and not remember doing it. G-Har, I said out loud in the empty break room. Graham Hart, captain. I had shaken his hand once, months back, when I was handling an odd-sized bag by the jet bridge and he'd thanked me for not making him wait. He wore a wedding ring, a heavy one. He had eyes that looked good at judging distance. My hands shook. Not rage shook, more like the kind you get when you haven't eaten and someone pulls a rug under your balance. I sat again. I scrolled. The crew chat icon popped on the watch face, Tasha's watch, like a tiny siren. The watch buzzed itself on the charger and lit to a preview, Gate 23, same plan. I tapped to open. The thread names on Apple devices can sync if the accounts are linked. Ours were, because she used my phone once to send a group message to our babysitter and never unlinked the accounts right. In the crew chat, the last message from GH said, we'll keep it tight. Gate 23, same plan. Another bubble above it had a thumbs up from Tasha. Crew chat shorthand is simple, meet spot, meet time, keep it quiet. I didn't notice I was breathing shallow until Duke's hand landed on my shoulder. You okay? Yeah, I said, but my voice didn't match it. He looked at the watch. He looked at me. He took the watch gently and set it face down like a small animal that needed rest. You want to go home? No, I said. I want to finish a shift. I want to do one thing I know how to do. He squeezed my shoulder once and left. Duke's a man who knows when the right words are no words. I could have called Tasha right there. I could have thrown a grenade text into her day, why Chicago? Instead, I cataloged, non-rev standby, hotel voucher, link stays with G Har, crew chat message, gate 23, same plan, Apple Health spike at 2037. My brain lined them up like bags on the belt, scan, load, watch the wait, make sure they're going where they say they're going. The third piece didn't come from a screen. It came from a person. I had a friend in airport security, a guy named Reyes. He's the kind of quiet that makes people tell him things. I ran into him near the service corridor that connects the e-concourse to the rest of the terminal. He saw my face the way a storm spotter sees a wall cloud. You got a minute? I asked. For you? Yeah, he said, peeling off toward a doorway where we could talk without being on 100 cameras. I don't want to put you in a spot, I said, but if I tell you I think my wife was somewhere she said she wasn't? I can't pull feeds for personal stuff, he said. You know that. I do, I said. What about general patterns, badge logs? He looked at the floor, back up at me. He'd been to our house. He'd seen Miles build Lego jets on the rug. I'm not saying anything official, but the e-security badge door shows 2 passes last night after midnight within 2 minutes of each other. 1 heart, 1 your wife. Same corridor. That hallway doesn't go to ATL. He didn't have to say more. He wouldn't. He patted my shoulder and walked away like nothing had happened. I stood in that service corridor and felt like I was the last to know in my own house, my territory, my airport. I thought about every time I told a passenger, don't worry, your bag will make it. I thought about how many times she looked me in the eyes and said, lights out in ATL. On my lunch break, I drove to the little park across Billy Graham Parkway where planes drop low over the trees. From there, CLT looks like a toy set, little metal birds landing in a line. I sat on a bench and called my mother to ask if she could get Miles from school the next day, just in case. I didn't tell her why. I heard her hear it anyway. You okay, baby? She asked. I'm going to be, I said, but I need to collect some things. That night, I cooked spaghetti for Miles and listened to his story about a kid at recess who thinks he can do a cartwheel and cannot. Every sentence out of my son's mouth was a rope that kept me from floating off. Tasha FaceTimed from a hotel room with beige curtains and said, Atlanta room service is a joke, and laughed. I kept my face flat. I asked about her day. She said, with that little shrug she does, like bad days slide off her. When we hung up, I went to the garage and found the envelope where we kept every boring adult paper that matters. Birth certificates, car titles, the deed. I added fresh printouts, non-rev logs, hotel voucher screenshots, the loyalty page showing linked stays, a screen grab of the crew chat preview, the Apple Health spike. I printed a form I never thought I would need this soon, a petition for separation with a temporary custody schedule. I didn't know if I would actually hand it to her. I just needed it to exist in our world, a thing I could hold that was heavier than a text message. 3 days later, she was routed through Charlotte on a quick turn. I knew because I know our schedules like I know the taxi lines. I knew what concourse her airline uses. I knew a gap between two flights that would put her on the concourse with the food court where you can smell pizza and pretzels no matter what hour it is. The atrium there has white rocking chairs for show and a piano. No one plays. I took off my vest and walked in with the normal people, feeling like a man undercover in his own town. I saw them before they saw me. Tasha in her uniform, hair up, the easy way she stands when she's on a break, shoulders down, weight on one hip. Captain Graham with his cap tucked under his arm and pilot blues that make passengers relax. He was talking with his hands close to her elbow. If you didn't know anything, you'd have said colleagues, maybe friends. If you knew what I knew, you'd have said intimacy is in the space you don't need to cross. I stepped into their line of sight. Tasha's face did a tiny thing, like a thought passed over it too fast to catch. Graham's eyes cut to me and then to a middle distance. Hey, I said. My voice was calm. That surprised me. Hey, Tasha said. What are you doing? We need to talk, I said. Graham took a half step back, the universal pilot move for this isn't my airspace. He said, I'll give you 2 a minute, and started to turn. Actually, I said, looking at him, you're part of it. He stopped. He looked square at me. To his credit, he didn't play dumb. That would have been an insult. Tasha, I said, and the sound of her name like that in a public place made my throat tight. Did you go to Atlanta or Chicago? She glanced at Graham. He kept his face neutral. She looked back at me and said, very soft, Chicago. Did you spend the night with him? I asked. Every word felt like lifting something heavy, slow. She didn't look again at Graham. She looked at the floor. Then she said, yes. Graham's jaw moved like he was about to speak. I held up my hand without looking at him. Did you tell me Atlanta because it sounded easier? I asked. She nodded. I told myself it was a one-off, she said. Then it wasn't. Gate 23, same plan, I said. That mean anything? She flinched like I'd slapped her, though my hands were down by my sides. You saw that? She asked. I saw enough, I said. Then I turned to Graham. You married? He hesitated a fraction. Separated, he said. Congratulations, I said, and the sarcasm in it was a knife I didn't aim and couldn't take back. Li, Tasha said, a warning or a plea. People passed around us carrying cinnamon rolls the size of their faces, rolling suitcases that clicked on tile. We were a rock in a stream. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the envelope. She knew what it was before she touched it. She didn't open it. She just held it like it might bite. What do you want me to say? She asked. I want you to tell me if you are done with our marriage, I said. Not with your schedule, with me. She looked at Graham. He looked anywhere but at her. She looked back at me and said, I don't know. The strangest mercy in the world is a clean answer. I don't know, isn't clean. But yes was too clean for me to believe. No would have been a lie. So maybe, I don't know, was the truest thing she'd said to me in months. I'm not going to make a scene, I said. This is a public place. You have a shift. I have a son to pick up. We'll talk when you're off duty. But for now, we're separating. You'll see the temporary schedule in there. I'm not trying to destroy your job. I'm trying to protect my kid. She blinked fast. He never saw anything. Miles never. I know, I said, and he won't. I turned to Graham. Stay out of my house, my yard, my kid's school, and my neighborhood. That's not a threat. That's a boundary. He nodded once. For a second, the pilot mask slipped and a tired man was under it. Understood, he said. I walked away on knees that felt like a ramp at full taxi weight. In the reflection of a storefront, I saw myself, a man in jeans and a navy jacket. Not a vest, not a badge, nobody to the crowd. My face was set like the weather outside when a front moves in and changes everything. Tasha came home 2 days later with a suitcase that wasn't the one she took. She stood in the doorway like it was her first time in our house. I'm moving to a crash pad for crews, she said. Crash pads are shared apartments where flight crews sleep cheap between flights. Kim from scheduling has a spot. I nodded. Your stuff is in the guest room, I said. I had moved her uniforms there and the framed photos she liked. I had taken none down from the hallway for Miles' sake. He doesn't need bare walls on top of everything else. She looked around our kitchen like it was a museum exhibit about a life that had been. She put her hands on the back of a chair the way she does when she's bracing for a turn. I'm sorry, she said. I know, I said, and I did. Sorry is a thin blanket when your bones are cold. It still helps some. We sat at the table because that's where we make the real decisions in this house. She started to speak, then stopped, then started again. When she finally said it, it came out small. I didn't plan it, she said. I felt invisible. He made me feel seen. You could have told me you felt invisible, I said. I did, she said, not angry, just reporting. I think you heard me. I think we were both tired. And then it happened, and then it kept happening. I can track bags across a continent, I said, and my voice broke in a way I hadn't planned, but I couldn't track you across one lie. She put a hand out like she might touch mine. She didn't. I know, she said. We talked about logistics like we were dividing a route map. School mornings, pickups, overnights. We decided I would keep Miles Monday through Friday morning. She would have Tuesdays and Thursdays after school, plus every other weekend, flexing for her rotations. We agreed on a standing call each Sunday night to review the week. It felt like building something out of pieces that used to be a whole. The next day I met with HR. Not hers, mine. I sat with Helen, who handles the messier parts of our lives with a soft voice and a thick binder. I don't need to get anyone fired, I said. I need my schedule to flex for my son's pickup for a bit, and I want you to know what's happening in case it spills into the airport, in case there are scenes. Understood, she said, writing notes. Do you have documentation of anything that might put you or your son at risk? No risk, I said, just pain. We can plan around pain, she said. We do it every day here. I gave her the envelope copies, not to scorch earth, just to have a record, hotel vouchers, non-rev logs, the loyalty page, screenshots of the crew chat, the Apple Health spike, badge hints, though those were more whispers than hard proof. She looked at each paper like it was a small bird, careful not to break it. You've been thorough, she said. I move luggage, I said. Thorough is my love language. She smiled the small smile people use when something hurts and they don't know where to put their hands. We'll adjust your start by an hour for the next 6 weeks, she said. Bring me anything else you need. I walked out feeling both heavier and lighter. Heavier because every step made the situation more real. Lighter because each step meant a plan that involved more than my own shaking hands. The first Friday morning that was mine, I made pancakes that looked like states and failed geography. Miles laughed anyway. On the way to school, he asked from the back seat, "Is Mommy sleeping at Kim's now?" It hit me like a tug bump I didn't see. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "For a little while, she's working a lot. We're gonna make sure you get to school even if Mom or Dad has a flight early or a shift late." He nodded like a kid who should never have to nod about that. At night, after he went to bed, the house changed shape. There were new silences in it. I filled them with small sounds, the dishwasher, the laundry, the pencil on a crossword I didn't finish. Sometimes I went outside and watched planes lift off into the black. My favorite are the red-eye heavies, too big for the sky and yet they go. I thought about what it means to be too heavy and still go. A week later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Graham." I stared at it like it had teeth. "I don't want more contact than necessary," I wrote back. "I understand," he wrote. "I'm stepping back. I shouldn't have crossed the line with someone married. I'm sorry for my part in hurting your family." It wasn't for me, really. It was for him. Men like him like to put the right words on a problem and hope it shrinks. Still, some part of me appreciated the attempt at adult. I didn't answer. 2 weeks after that, Tasha came by to pick up Miles and stood in the doorway holding a plant. "It's for the kitchen," she said. "You kill everything green." "Accurate," I said. We made small talk about schedules and PTA emails and a new math app that made Miles roll his eyes. When she was about to go, she turned back. "You've been decent," she said. "I know you don't have to be." "It's not for you," I said, and there was no meanness in it. "It's for him, and it's for me. I don't want to live in a room with nothing but revenge in it. It smells bad in there." She blinked. "I miss our old house," she said. "The one inside this house." "I do too," I said. "But we live where we live." She nodded and left. The plant sat on the counter with its little plastic tag that said how much sun it wanted. I Googled it and put it where the tag told me to. I watered it like it could answer questions about marriage. Days stacked. The ache didn't go away so much as become background, like the constant APU hum you only notice when it stops. I started running again early on the greenway before shift. It was less about health and more about making my body too tired to shake. One morning, I saw the sun come up over the trees and it felt like the first good thing I hadn't had to wrestle. Duke invited me to his place on a Sunday for a cookout that was more about me not being alone than about burgers. "Bring Miles," he said. "Let him destroy my backyard." In Duke's yard, Miles found a frog and named it Sky. I sat in a lawn chair with a paper plate and watched my kid laugh so hard he hiccuped. It hit me then that laughter is proof of life. That's when I decided the story I tell myself would not end in the food court at CLT. It would end somewhere I chose. There's a part of me that will always be back in that first moment with the iPad, the clean white banner, and the lie in my pocket. But another part of me is here, making breakfast, tying shoes, waving at teachers, taking an extra half hour to help Miles tape cardboard wings on a shoebox and call it a plane. If you ask me what saved me, it wasn't the evidence stack, though I am grateful for it. It was small decencies, Duke's hand on my shoulder, Helen's binder, Reyes risking a hint because he knows what a family feels like when it bends. My mother's voice saying, "You'll be okay." The plant surviving a month on my counter, the sound of my own feet on the greenway in the blue light before morning. One late afternoon, I stood in the atrium with the white rocking chairs and the never-ending smell of pretzels. I was there to pick up Miles from a flight back from his grandma's. Tasha walked off the plane with him, holding his hand, his hair a mess from sleep. He saw me and ran, and I scooped him up and he was heavy in that good way that means he is alive and ours. Tasha and I exchanged a look that wasn't love and wasn't hate. It was a look two people give each other when they've been in the same storm and found different shelters. "Tuesday pickup?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Okay," she said. "He ate too many animal crackers." "I'll handle the fallout," I said. We smiled at the same time without meaning to. Then she walked toward the exit that led to employee parking, and I walked toward the exit that led to visitor pickup. And in the split, I felt the ache and the relief at the same time. Months later, HR closed my little life event case. The envelope in my file cabinet is thinner now. The crash pad called to say Tasha moved to a different one closer to the airport. She and Graham are not a thing, or they are, depending on the week rumor decides to work. I don't ask, not my airspace. Miles's teacher says he's reading better. We built a paper plane and threw it off the porch, and it snagged in a tree, and we laughed because it felt like good luck to get stuck that high. On some evenings, when the air is clear, I can see the glide path lining up to runway 18C, and I say a quiet prayer for every soul in those little metal birds to land where they said they would. Here's what I know, and it's not complicated. You can love someone who lies to you and still not lie to yourself. You can lead without making yourself a villain or making them a monster. Boundaries aren't vengeance, they're gates that keep the wild out so your kid can sleep. The truth is not a weapon when you use it to build instead of to burn. If you were sitting across from me at my kitchen table right now, I'd pour you a coffee that still tastes a little like a brake drum, and I'd tell you I didn't win anything. I didn't lose everything. I picked my son up on time today. I made dinner. I folded laundry. I didn't check her location. My house is quieter, but it's honest. When I go to bed, I hear the ice maker drop cubes like small bones, and I think about the way a heart starts over between beats. That little gap, that silence. That's where the new route begins. Two questions for you. Where's your boundary between suspicion and proof, and would you act before you had both? If someone you loved crossed the line in secret, what would justice look like to you without destroying yourself in the process? If this story hit home, stick around, share your thoughts, and subscribe for more.